While it certainly can be said that a large number of archetypes would benefit from new support, that's not surprising. There are certain archetypes that would benefit greatly simply from one additional level 4 or lower monster that exists within the scope of the archetype, i.e., it has the common name of the given archetype. For the archetype itself, is quite limited by the general lack of quality monsters fitting that characteristic. This is the list of the 10 archetypes in the game right now that I feel would most benefit from that one additional monster. And overall, it's really in no particular order. One of the first archetypes that most people would think of to represent this list is obviously Harpie Lady. While to the unexperienced player there may be a number of Harpy Ladies, so where's the shortage of monsters? Obviously, the more experienced player quickly realizes that the problem with the Harpy Lady monster pool is Konami erred in the first round of the new support, with Harpy Ladies 1, 2, 3, and Cyber Harpy acting as Harpy Lady, period, rather than just in the field or graveyard, which limits the number of these cards one can run in the deck to only three among all of these Harpy Lady monsters. So basically, you have five different monsters, but you can only run three copies overall of those five different monsters. Konami eventually fixed this mistake when making Harpist, Queen, Channeler, and Dancer, but overall, Harpy Lady decks can still only field 15 copies of monsters that, in one shape or form, can be called Harpy Ladies. With only 15 copies of Harpy Lady available at any given time, and with the quality of spell and trap support that Harpy Ladies have available to them, this lack of Harpy monsters really hurts the playability of the deck. And in addition, it heavily limits the way you can build the deck. So, Harpy Ladies definitely need another Harpy Lady monster. And for that monster to matter, it would definitely need to be quality. So, what would that monster entail? My idea would be something akin to Harpy Stormtrooper, Wind, Wing Beast, level 4, 1500 attack, 1400 defense. This card's name becomes Harpy Lady while it is on the field or in the graveyard if you have at least one Harpy monster on the field or in your graveyard with a different name. You can special summon this card from your hand. Once per turn, you can destroy one card on your side of the field and return one Harpy monster in your graveyard to your deck to banish one card on your opponent's side of the field. Stormtrooper accomplishes some important gap fillers in the Harpy Lady archetype. First, it helps address the Blackwing problem, producing a means to establish a Harpy-based field presence, also without Daigusto Emerald available anymore, and no real idea when that could get off the ban list, if ever. The deck needs some form of effective recycling for its monsters, and this card can provide that, along with the ability to destroy on-field Hysteric and Harpy Hunting Ground to banish opponent cards. Another archetype that is generally lacking in the monster department, in part because it's a newer archetype that Konami might have just forgotten about, as they are wont to do from time to time with given archetypes. I think Konami really almost paints itself into a corner sometimes. That the philosophy is how many new archetypes can we create rather than how many new quality archetype we can create. Here's your 10 cards. Okay, on to the next archetype. Right now, this archetype is obviously interwoven with its fellow zombies, which is certainly understandable, but Shiranui are poised to make a breakthrough if they ever receive another quality monster, shaking off the cheap and, in a sense, somewhat shameless multiple Omega strategy. So, what would this monster do? Shiranui Strategist, Fire Zombie, level 4, 1400 attack, 0 defense. Once per turn during either player's turn, if a monster effect is activated, you can discard this card from your hand to draw one card, then banish one Shiranui monster from your deck or graveyard. Once per turn, during your main phase 1, you can banish this card from your graveyard. If this card is banished, you can select one zombie monster on your field. The selected monster is treated as a tuner until your next end phase. If the selected monster is used in a Synchro Summons as a tuner, you can add one banished Shiranui Strategist to your hand, then return one Shiranui monster to your deck to draw one card. This monster helps address two important issues for Shiranui. First, the ability to banish a Shiranui monster during the opponent's turn to create versatility and benefit from the wide variety of existing and possible future Shiranui monsters. For example, you could banish a Spirit Master and interrupt the opponent's play by popping a monster, banish a Sage and establish some form of defense, etc. Also, the fact that the effect works when any monster effect is activated, not just an opponent's monster, allows it to work during the Shiranui player's turn to increase combo play potential. The banish effect is nice to increase synchro summoning versatility, especially when you don't have a tuner available, including the utilization of a monster like Beast of the Pharaoh as that tuner, which would trigger Beast of the Pharaoh's effect. In addition to providing a means to draw as well as recycle Shiranui back to the deck to use their effects later. In a sense, not only does Strategist recycle itself, but it recycles the Shiranui that you probably used with this effect initially. While there have been some who have, foolishly in my opinion, called for the return of their key supercard, Spellbook of Judgment, most players have seemingly abandoned the idea of Prophecy receiving any new monster support that is not a Link monster. Boy, that new Link monster for Prophecy was ill-advised and almost does nothing to help the deck. So, what could Prophecy receive that would aid Spellbook management and playmaking ability? Fortune of Prophecy, light spellcaster, level 4, 1000 attack, 1500 defense. If at least two spellbook cards with different names have been activated during the current turn, this card can be special summoned from your hand. This card gains the following effects based on the number of spellbook cards with different names in your graveyard. Effects are cumulative. 2. Destroy one spell or trap on the field. 3. Special summon one prophecy monster from your hand. 4 plus. If a spellbook card is banished, add one spell card in your graveyard to your hand. Each effect of Fortune of Prophecy can only be activated once per turn. One of the biggest failures of the new Prophecy Link monster is that it normal summons without tribute, rather than special summon, disallowing the summons effect from triggering for World or Wheel, and with Reapers only from deck condition, this summons effect leaves a lot desired at actually helping the deck. Fortune actually clears up this mess by special summoning from the hand, which is kind of the missing link for the Prophecy deck. You can summon from the deck, you can summon from the graveyard, you can't summon from the hand very effectively. Also, it covers a significant weakness of Prophecy in the ability to remove back row without relying on Fate's single banish effect, including your own back row, significantly increasing combo playmaking with both towers and stars effect. Because most of the time, especially with towers, you're not going to get its effect because your opponent is just going to interrupt its effect either when you initially put it on the field or when you try to activate its effect during your standby phase, and because of the when, it's going to miss timing and you won't get its secondary effect when it goes to the graveyard. One of the hidden gem decks in the game that almost no one plays, in my opinion, because in a lot of respects it's been overshadowed by its much more popular big brother that was released at the same time, good old ABC. Electromagnet Warriors certainly deserve more attention and play. One of the reasons for this lack of attention is the delayed release of Delta, which definitely helped the playability of the deck. However, still with only 4 practical magnet monsters in tow, the original Alpha, Beta, and Gamma are far too power crept to be valuable. If Electromagnet Warriors received a new monster that could be searched for with Beta and summoned by Gamma, their playability would soar. Magnet Warrior Epsilon, Earth Rock, level 4, 1600 attack, 1000 defense. If this card is summoned with at least one Magnet Warrior monster in your graveyard, you can double its attack. If this effect is activated, banish this card at the end of the next battle phase. During either player's turn, you can special summon this card from your hand or graveyard by returning 2 banished Earth Rock type monsters to the graveyard. You can only use this effect of Magnet Warrior Epsilon once per turn. Epsilon covers a few issues for this deck. The general lack of raw attack power, which is only seen in Berserkion, its main deck boss monster, and providing a means to return banished monsters to the graveyard. Rock-based decks have a number of cards that banish rocks from the graveyard, but almost no means to return those cards to the graveyard beyond the few generic means that exist in the game, heavily limiting the impact and potential of those effects. Epsilon not only helps produce field presence for this deck, both during your turn and your opponent's turn, thanks to its innate special summons ability as well as its attack change ability, but addresses the return issue, taking away any desire a player might have to really rely on the quasi bricky cards like Burial from a Different Dimension or Pot of Acquisitiveness. I have held the position that this next archetype could be a force to be reckoned with, if only it would receive a couple of level 4 or lower monsters that it could actually normal summon without some sort of wacky condition. Well, here at least Saiframes can receive one level 4 or lower monster that can be normal summoned, as well as searched by Alpha or Overload. Saiframe Sigma, light, psychic, level 4, 1500 attack, 1500 defense. Once per turn, during either player's main phase, you can reveal one Saiframe monster in your hand to your opponent to remove this card from play until the next end phase. If this card is removed from the field by its own effect, you can return one Saiframe monster in your hand to your deck, then add one Saiframe card from your deck to your hand. You can banish this card from your graveyard to return one Saiframe monster not named Saiframe Sigma in your graveyard to your hand. Not only does Sigma provide a means to create field presence without having to rely on your opponent to make plays and you then countering them with your other Saiframe monsters, set up the field to the point where smaller Saiframes can activate their effect by jumping out of the way, similar to Zeta and Omega. It also provides hand swapping, increasing the probability that Saiframe players can make counterplays against the opponent. One of the biggest problems with this deck is that if the wrong Saiframes are drawn, the deck can do little, if anything, to prevent the opponent from ending the duel very quickly, because it can't produce much field presence. Sigma provides a significant increase in consistency and security on that front, removing some of the randomization to the signature negation aspect of the Saiframe deck. One of my favorite archetypes is definitely on the verge of high level competitiveness, despite the lack of high luck based standing of their archetype design. If Karndeans received one more level 4 or lower monster with a certain summoning condition, I believe that the meta would suddenly see a lot more of this enjoy archetype. Karndean River Through Plain, Dark Warrior, level 2, 1000 attack, 1000 defense. Cannot be normal summoned set, must first be special summoned from your hand by discarding one card from your hand. If this card is special summoned, increase your life points by 300 times the number of Karndean monsters in your graveyard. If your life points increase by at least 1200 by this effect, draw one card. This effect can only be activated once per turn. If your opponent's monster declares a direct attack, you can banish this card and one other Karndean monster from your graveyard to end the current battle phase and turn all opponent monsters to defense position. The one thing that Karndeans is really missing is a quality starting card for summoning strings that is not Pine. Yes, Cherry has the potential to start summoning strings, but can also fail miserably, ripping two important cards, the Cherry from your hand and whatever spell or trap or non-Karndean monster you drew off to try to summon it. And both Super Koi Koi and Flower Gathering can also start those strings, but are hit or miss in a lot of respects, especially Flower Gathering, because if you don't have a follow up, it's kind of worthless. The simple fact is that most veteran Karndean players acknowledge the value of a discard to special summon effect for this deck, setting up a Recarnation and other deck techs like a Level Eater or a Backjack. The life point gain and Necrogardna like effect would also help fill in some nice gaps in Karndean strategy related to the higher than average ability of the deck not to produce an initial field due to ill timed draws. The next archetype on the list is one that received a large bout of new support recently thanks to the anime, which actually made the deck playable. For the first round of support from an earlier anime was almost instantly power creeped and rather poorly designed as a whole. It was typical, oh yeah, this is definitely from the anime type cards. And it left the deck grounded for quite some time. Unfortunately, the newest level 4 coming up for this deck, Ancient Gear Frame, is substandard in my opinion, almost pigeonholing the deck to an ancient gear golem centric strategies that I feel are substandard. For while some may swear by gear golem turbo builds, that's a deck build that, even with the new support and ancient gear fusion, I feel is still far too inconsistent to be meaningful. So, what type of level 4 monster should ancient gears have received instead of gear frame to bolster play strategy, as well as act as another quality name for fusion summoning? Because, oh boy, do ancient gears really need those quality ancient gear monsters, because they have great fusions, they just don't have enough good material to make them. Ancient Gear Blast Reformer. Earth Machine, level 4, 1000 attack, 1000 defense. Return this card in your hand to your deck. Destroy one spell trap on the field. During your end phase, if this card is in your graveyard and you have at least one other Ancient Gear monster in your graveyard with a different name, you can special summon this card in defense position. You can return all Ancient Gear monsters on your side of the field to your hand and increase your life points by 1000 per return monster. This effect can only be activated once per turn. This monster accomplishes two main goals. It provides an MST-like effect from the hand, increasing the probability of triggering a card like Gear Town or Ancient Gear Fortress, taking some pressure off of Twin Twister or Catapult, or you can simply remove an opponent's card, but it also has an Ancient Gear name, so it can be used in fusion summoning. It also has the capacity to return monsters on your side of the field back to your hand to set up the activation of a card like Catapult or Ancient Gear Reborn. Finally, it can act as a defensive wall during your end phase, limiting the ability of the opponent to really ring up the damage, because one of the big flaws of Ancient Gears is they don't have a lot of during your opponent's turn interruption or protection. Fortress is great on your turn most of the time, because that's when a vast majority of your summoning is happening. This card gives you a secondary defender that your opponent's probably not going to burn removal getting rid of. The next card represents an archetype that its supporters believe is only one OCG card away from dramatically increased relevance. While the release of Fright for Patchwork would certainly be great for all Fluffle fans, I feel that they're one more quality Fluffle monster away from being significantly more competitive, with or without Patchwork. So, what Fluffle would make the whole menagerie shine? Fluffle Giraffe, Earth Fairy, level 4, 1600 attack, 1400 defense. If you control a Fright for Fusion monster, you can send this card from your hand or field to the graveyard to make your opponent return one card on their field to their hand. If this card is in the graveyard, you can return this card to your deck and send one card on your side of the field to the graveyard to special summon one Fluffle monster in your graveyard. You can only activate this effect once per turn. Giraffe provides a mean to remove anti-destruction threats when fusion summoning. Giraffe also helps address the issue of multiple summons during the same turn without having to almost contaminate, in my opinion, your deck by using Brilliant Fusion, especially with regards to dog and owl summoning. In addition to helping the deck grind by getting those specific graveyard summons, netting necessary pluses to rebuild a secondary attack run with Fluffle. Finally, it also gives you a secondary option of getting rid of your toy vendors from field when you don't have a penguin diffusion summon to dump it from hand, or you don't have the wings combo set up. The list is winding down, and one obvious choice has yet to be discussed. Well, no more. It's time to give the love to good old Volcanics, which is in desperate need of a new monster. So, what could the valuable new monster be? Volcanic Catalytic Bomb. Fire Pyro, level 3, 1100 attack, 800 defense. If this card is sent to the graveyard from your hand, and at least one other differently named volcanic monster is in the graveyard, you can special summon this card. If a volcanic monster is sent to the graveyard from your hand, special summon one bomb token. Pyro Fire, level 1, 500 attack, 0 defense, to your field. Bomb tokens cannot be removed from the field except by battle or card effects. During your end phase, destroy one bomb token and inflict 800 damage to your opponent. If a bomb token is destroyed by battle, return one card on the field to its hand. Overall, volcanics are probably tied with harpies for the deck that just needs more monsters because right now the number of quality monsters available for just simple tri-blaze sending to the graveyard to get your engine going is basically limited to rocket, scattershot, shell, and if one chooses to run it, counter, as most of the other volcanic monsters are garbage, and Doomfire is something you really don't want to be throwing into the graveyard if you choose to run that. Thus, there's not a lot of ammunition for Tri-Blades. Not only is Catalytic Bomb another piece of fuel, but its effect is rather solid, providing tokens that either aid in the burn damage victory condition that some volcanic decks have, or help bounce cards on the field to the hand, because another deficiency of volcanic is a lack of non-destruction based removal. Scattershot's great. What happens when you run up against a deck that floats like crazy or just shrugs off destruction? The tokens address that issue. Also, the tokens could bounce a player's monsters back to the hand, like Rocket or Royal Firestorm Guards, for reuse during a later turn. Get more draws, or get that additional search of Triblaze. Finally, the last archetype on this list is one I did a recent deck build for, and screwed up a couple of the pronunciations. But that notwithstanding, I will never screw up those pronunciations again, I can tell you that much. This deck recently received some new support that fell flat outside of one particular monster. So they need some additional quality help. It's time to help out ninjas with a new quality monster that could breathe new life into some of the already existing ninja monsters. Ninja Shaman Hazuki, Dark Warrior, level 4, 1600 attack, 1800 defense. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can send one ninjutsu card from your deck, hand, or face up on your field to the graveyard to special summon one level 4 or lower ninja with a different name from your hand or graveyard. You can only activate this effect once per turn. If this card is banished, you can set one ninjutsu card in your graveyard on your field, and if you do, special summon this card from your banished zone in face up defense position. This card gives new life to both Strike Ninja and Black Dragon Ninja. Its application with Strike Ninja is obvious. It can be used with Black Dragon Ninja as the cost, helping field presence and lowering the overall cost to use Black Dragon Ninja's effect, or it can be used as the target if you just want to grab an important ninjutsu card from the graveyard and set it on the field for reuse. That is used as the cost for the effect. The banish effect is triggered by any card, not just a ninja card, so while Strike Ninja is a great choice, you could trigger it with using a card like Gold Sarcophagus to provide another means to get it on the field and a previously used ninjutsu card. Its graveyard effect also helps Ninja deal with the small Blackwing problem they have. In addition, with some clever deck design, Shaman's dump and reuse ninjutsu design structure can help give some additional use to older ninjutsu cards that may not be good in a vacuum. Obviously, there are other decks that would benefit significantly from new support, but these decks I feel have the most potential to increase their competitiveness with just that one single card if it was designed right, and could be viewed as the most deserving of new support because it's tough to justify giving new support to a tier 5 deck that would make it a tier 3 deck versus a tier 3 deck that would make it a tier 2 or tier 1.5 deck. Well, that concludes this list of archetypes I believe would jump significantly in competitiveness with only a single new level 4 or lower monster with a name that pretty much plays with the archetype so it can take advantage of a lot of the other support the archetype possesses. Thank you for your attention and your time. I'm out.